What's going on, everybody? This is Brandon at Snickerver Fly Shop, coming at you today with a new smallmouth, largemouth, bass bug in general. We've had a lot of folks in and been seeing a lot of things talking about, smallmouth fishing on the Snake, some of our local reservoir stuff, and a lot of folks are talking about how, fish are still lingering around beds. It's a little late this year, but typically, females come in, spawn, do their thing, and then they'll leave, and then the males will guard. And so having a fly that you can put right in the bullseye in a sense, and leave it there, get it to stand up, kind of have action on its own too, without adding a ton of movement, stuff like that, is key to getting these reaction strikes and whatnot. So this bug right here is us kind of simulating a Ned rig in a sense. This bug's going to prop straight up. You're going to be able to give it kind of micro twitches with your rod and get a ton of movement, a ton of play with it sticking straight up in the air. So we're going to jump right into this thing. We're tying this on a big nymph hook. This is a number 6 from Matsu. You can see, really cool, quick side note on this is that this is different than any other jig hook you're going to find out there, right? You got this really long shank come in at this 60-degree, pretty standard. But the biggest thing is that it has a gap and point to it that's very similar to like your Texas style, like bass worm hooks. The biggest thing with that is a wide gap. Thinner wire is going to allow for better penetration. Most bass, you're not going to have that issue, but it's going to stick really fast. And then also that big wide gap is going to help hold those fish on there compared to some of the other really heavy wire things. Semperfli waxed. This is just a 6/0 in tan. You can use whatever color you want. This is what I had handy. And so we're going to start our thread right up here at the very front end. And I'm going to build a little ball of thread right where the bend is, just to kind of help my barbell eyes from not sliding off that as I'm attaching them. So biggest thing with this is make sure you're using a large or bigger lead eye, right? It can be whatever color you want, any brand, you name it. I like the lead just because it gives you a little more punch compared to brass, but you want to have them kind of oversized. That way the eye itself kind of overshadows the hook eye. That way you can get it to really prop and stand up. So we're going to just go ahead and we're going to attach these as close to that bend as possible. That way they kind of overhang like I was talking. So we're going to get these secured with some X-wraps, figure 8s, and then Larry's saddle wraps underneath. Kind of lock that in. And then finally, once we get everything lined up, I'm going to build a little bit of a thread dam on this backside just to help kind of keep things where they need to be. Okay. So now we're going to advance our thread all the way to the back, right where the bend is. Laying down a decent thread layer. And just like always, when I let my thread hang, it's pretty much in line with my barb. That's a pretty good end point there. So the next two materials that we're going to be using, our water wick chenille in brown and our hydro hackle in chocolate. Okay. And we're going to take 10-inch sections of both. I already have mine pre-cut here. All right, we're going to go ahead and tie in our water wick chenille out the back. Just going to tie in the tip section of it here. And then we're going to come in with our hydro. Now, one thing about our hydro, you can see it has a direction that it wants to point, just like feathers, stuff like that. You want to make sure that you have it all kind of pointed down in a sense. You don't want to reverse. You want to go with the flow of that material. Same thing, tie it in right on top. Once you get that lashed down, you're going to let your thread hang. And then similar to some of the other videos that we've done, we're going to furl this, basically twisting the two materials together. Making it a little stronger, but it'll allow us to make kind of an extended body on this, giving us that Ned rig. And so before you go ahead and do that, make sure you have all your hydro kind of on one side. And you can see that the water wick has kind of a flat edge or a flatness to it. You want to make sure that that's as flat as possible. You're going to lay the hydro on top of that. And then before I start spinning this, I'm going to take my hands and run it up to get those barbs to kind of stick straight up. That way you don't trap as many fibers. And so then all we're going to do is just pinch down here on the bottom, and we're just going to start spinning this on itself. Okay, we're going to spin that a few times. I'm going to come through and we're going to pick these fibers out. Okay, give it a few more. And then you'll come up with this nice noodle that we have right through here. And now I'm going to more or less pick a hook shank length roughly and a half of this material. And that's where I'm going to pinch it. And then I'm going to fold it back on itself like so, and that's going to give me my extension. Now once I got these 2 equal parts that I'm going to fold up, I'm going to come through and I'm going to kind of clean up a tie-in point. That way it's easier to tie in. So we're going to fold this like so. Got our tie-in point. When I let go, this is going to want to spin up on itself. Now we have this really nice extended tail, and we can go ahead. This is going to unravel a little bit, but I'll just lay it over my barbell eyes, and then I'm just going to attach it here with a few wraps. Making sure my wraps are right on top of each other. We're going to pull that back, lay down a few at the base of that, and then I'm going to advance my thread forward to about the midpoint, 3/4 point of my shank here. Okay. So now we're going to come in and tie in some legs. We're going to do our crawdad claw in our laser leg series. I pulled off a set of 3 here, keeping the tabs intact, makes it a little easier. And then I'm just going to drape this over my hook, and I'm going to tie these in on top with a loose wrap, and then I'm going to come through and figure 8 these to kind of get them set in place. Kind of make some wings in a sense. So a few figure 8s through there. And then I can advance my thread all the way up to behind my eyes. You can see I got these perfectly placed wings coming out both sides. So now I can come in and trim just the very, very ends to get the legs free now. And then before I start wrapping, I'm going to pull these legs forward. If I can get them. And I'm just going to lay 2 loose wraps just over the top just to kind of keep them out of the way. So now this big excess section that I have here, we're just going to respin this, get it nice and tight again. And we're just going to start palmering that up the shank to the base of our legs. Pulling back those fibers with each pull, that way we're not trapping a bunch of stuff and we get a nice clean even body. Okay, and once we get there, to right at the base of those legs, we can unravel these. That way they're free again, and then get them reset to where you have 3 legs on each side. And so now I'm going to use, just like in our, you can reference back to our tutorial on how to get the perfect rubber legs set every time. We're going to use the material to space these. So I'm going to come up behind the first one, using my chenille to get them set, come around the other side, using my chenille to get them set there. And then we're going to split the second set. Like so. And then the final set, just to wrap in front. Okay, so we got our legs set where we want them. Now we can kind of pull those back, and we're going to stack 3 or so wraps right behind the eyes here, just to get those to lock in place and kind of fill in our gap. And once we got it there, we always tie our material off on top, 2 loose wraps behind it, pulling tight, pull that material back. A few wraps there, and then I'm going to cut this not as close as possible. I'm going to leave this little afro right here because when you pull your thread down through it, the puffiness of this water wick chenille will kind of help cover your tracks in a sense. Okay, so then we'll bring our thread forward onto the bend portion of the jig hook here, right close to the eye, and we're going to whip finish that off. We're not going to do anything too crazy whip finish wise. We don't need 732 because we're going to cover it with some resin. Okay, so now that we got bug tied off, we're going to come through, we're going to brush this sucker out. This is a very key component to this fly. So the whole idea behind this, you know, we've seen Ned rig bugs before, right? Bugs that prop up. The one thing that most of them have is some sort of foam or, you know, floating, you know, attachment that's just extra steps and extra glue, and we've all, you know, glued ourselves to flies before, so this is trying to help eliminate that. So by brushing this out, this is fluffing up a lot of your hydro hackle and this water wick chenille, which is going to help trap water. That way, when this thing plummets down, all those air bubbles are going to make it prop straight up. And so you can use just head cement and stuff on this. I like coating it with the resin because these are going to be, you know, bouncing around in the rocks and you're going to be beating the crap out of them. So we're going to add some just Loon thick UV resin just to kind of fill in this gap and more or less just create a protective layer over the business end of this where it's going to be clinking around down in the rocks. Help make your flies last a little longer. So I've just put a small coat there. We're going to come in and cure this. You can see the crawdad claw legs, these super bright orange eyes that I have a really great UV quality to them. We'll get this cured up here. Okay, so we got that cured. So one thing, whenever you're using a lot of resins, besides like, you know, Loon Flow or like the Solaris Bone Dry, they're tacky. So one thing where I don't have any of that today, I'm gonna take some handy dandy hand sanitizer or some rubbing alcohol. I'm just gonna put a small dab on my finger, wick away the majority of it, and then you just go right over the top of that resin with that, wipe that down, and now you're tack free. So that there is a really quick, super effective way to fish early season smallmouth, creep it along, and, you know, target fish that are on beds, or even just working them along shelves where you have fish that are kind of hanging out and hiding. We all know tube jigs and Ned rigs rule the bass world, so this is kind of our answer to that from a fly fishing perspective. And then also a very effective and most effective when used on a dry line. So that is the Propaganda smallmouth bug. So make sure to check out all of our other materials and stuff on our website. If you haven't subscribed to the channel or anything like that, we'd really appreciate it. You know, a thumbs up, subscribe there. That way you can stay up with all the latest and greatest in terms of the fly tying world. Appreciate it a ton. Thanks.